What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, we got big news for the One Piece TCG. We've got very, very big news for the One Piece TCG. They've gone and dropped the band hammer. I came here, I think it's about 3 months ago. I told you they'd restricted some cards, and basically what they did was restrict some cards to make red decks like Whitebeard and Roanoa Zoro less good. It didn't work. Now, Limitless TCG, wonderful site, and one of the things you can do is go on there and have a look in the current metagame how well different One Piece decks are doing. And if we go and have a look at how good different One Piece decks are doing right now in the OPO4 meta, we'll notice that the number one deck with about a third of the metagame, 30%, is Red Whitebeard. But Red Zoro is also coming in at about 13% as well. Add in Red Green Law, and red decks are very, very clearly just absolutely crushing the metagame. Red decks are too good. So they've gone one step further, and they've actually gone really far, and they've just flat out banned Edward Newgate. That leader cannot be played anymore. They've literally gone and banned it as of November the 10th. And as a side note, there is a regional going on in Liverpool on the 17th that I will be at. And this is going to be for that. That ban list is going to be in at that stage. That's a big deal. Of course, a while ago now, they went and banned Moby Dick, the stage card, hoping that that would slow down Newgate. Didn't really have any effect. Then they went and added 3 new restricted cards, that being the character Edward Newgate, was restricted to 1 copy per deck. Remember, restricted means you can still have one in there. The OPO2 4-cost Marco was restricted to 1 copy in your deck. And Radical Beam from OPO1 was restricted to 1 copy per deck. And the goal, and they told us this at the time, the goal was to make red decks like Zoro and Whitebeard less good. They literally told us they were the 2 decks they were going after by restricting those 2 cards. That was the goal. Well, they've gone even further this time, and they've just flat out banned Edward Newgate. What they've actually gone and done today is they have banned 3 cards outright, and they've restricted another card. So let's see what they said over on the Twitter announcement before we get into the real nitty-gritty of why they're actually banned. So starting off then, what they said was this. Hey One Piece players, thank you for playing the One Piece card game. On July the 28th, we added 3 cards to the restricted cards list as a measure to mitigate the high usage and win rates of red decks and leader cards of OPO1 Roanoa Zoro, OPO1 Trafalgar Law, and OPO2 Edward Newgate. Told ya. Despite these restrictions, we've continued to see these decks play a prominent role in the metagame. In order to provide a more enjoyable user experience of the One Piece card game and promote deck and gameplay diversity, we will be adding the following cards to the banned and restricted cards list starting on November the 10th. Told ya. These and other cards may be removed from the banned and restricted cards list in the future based on developments in the metagame and the release of new cards. Now, what I want to tell you about Whitebeard is this. I know at the moment some people are saying it's not that dominant. I mean, firstly, it's 30% of the metagame according to TCG Player. They're pretty good at this. And I know it hasn't won all of the regionals, and that's not the point. Firstly, it's doing incredibly well. And secondly, you got to remember that the Japanese results, given that Japan plays the same format as us, the Japan results are absolutely relevant. And in Japan, when OPO4 was rolling, there were 4 very, very big events in a row where the only 2 decks that made the final were Rebecca and Edward Newgate. So if you combine what we saw in Japan with those ridiculous results and what we're already seeing from OPO4 over here, yes, Edward Newgate is the best deck by a mile. Is it a problem deck? Not sure. Over in Japan, it really seemed like Newgate and Rebecca were fighting for supremacy. Over here, Rebecca is nowhere near as big as it was in Japan during OPO4. So maybe Whitebeard then becomes more of a problem. But either way, let's not bury the lead here. Newgate is the best leader. It's having a phenomenal run. It has done since OPO2 came out, and they banned it for that reason. I think you can make an argument that Newgate is the best deck, but not a huge problem. But if you look at the results and how well it's doing, you can see why. But that's not the only card that got banned, and one card that got banned, which I get, but it's still a bit confusing, is OPO1 Nami. Now, as a side note, remember that the alternate art of OPO1 Nami is one of the most expensive cards in the game right now, and there are pre- and post-errata versions that are actually out there, which doesn't help. But this is actually, in theory, going to drive the price down of Nami a little bit. That doesn't mean it's going to completely tank the price of Nami, and I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, right now, this is a very widely played card, and the fantasy version is one that people love. It's like a $150 card right now. But we could see this falling over the next couple of weeks, because now you're still going to have the collectors that want it, but there's now not going to be a bunch of people that want a playset for their deck, because you can't have a playset for your deck because it's banned. And the thing about Nami is, it's a fairly inoffensive card. One cost 2,000 power, counter plus 1,000. On play, look at 5 cards on the top of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Straw Hat Crew type character card other than Nami, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Here's the thing though. This card is exactly the same as Izzo. Like, literally exactly the same as Izzo, except instead of finding a Straw Hat Crew other than Nami, you find a Whitebeard pirate other than Izzo. Other than that, literally the same card. Functionally, exactly the same card. And they're both played in Whitebeard pirates. And yet, Nami gets the banhammer dropped. Izzo's fine. And there's a bunch more that are the same or very similar. Charlotte Puddin only lets you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, but it lets you find a Big Mum Pirates other than Charlotte Puddin, or a Sanji, which is quite nice. Buena Fiesta looks at the top 5 cards, finds a film other than Buena Fiesta, and you've actually got counter plus 2,000, and you've gone down to 0 power, but again, you've got counter plus 2,000, so I think a lot of the time you're going to be okay. This, look at the top X cards of your deck, find a this type other than the character you played, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This is something we see all the time. This is a very common type of card, and they've only hit Nami. And the reason they've only hit Nami is, well, Nami sees the most play. And the decks that are a problem are very, very consistent, and part of the consistency is the fact that they've got Nami to go and search these cards. Nami sees play in Whitebeard, and Nami sees play in Roanoke Zoro, and Nami sees play in Trafalgar Law. The top 3 decks of the format, all of them play Nami to go and search out cards. And there are a bunch of really good Straw Hat you can go and search out. Like, for instance, the Rush Zoro, or the Rush Luffy. These cards are more easily found because Nami's doing the searching. The 1-cost Tony Chopper blocker. Another example, another kind of card you could look at as a Straw Hat Pirate, which is being searched out with this. My point is, and just to be clear, I just named a couple of examples, there are plenty more. My point is that there are a lot of very good Straw Hats right now that are searchable with Nami, and because Nami is seeing play in the top 3 decks of the format, that's why the ban hammer has come down. The actual card itself is largely inoffensive, and like I've just shown you, we've got a bunch of other cards that do basically the same thing, but the difference is they're not used as effectively in so many different decks, and because of that, the ban hammer ends up coming and being dropped. But that's not the only card that's gone and been banned. There is one more, and that's Curly Danan, which is another card that, again, you can see why it got banned, but it's largely inoffensive. On play, look at 5 cards on the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 red character with a cost of 1, add it to your hand, place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Very similar functionally to Nami, incidentally. But it's another one where you basically look at all of these red decks and we go, oh, yeah, okay. Like, according to TCG Player, 100% of lore decks play a playset of Curly Danan. 97.3% of Zoro decks play 4 copies of Curly Danan. Whitebeard less so, admittedly, but we do see it in lore and in Zoro just absolutely constantly. And of course, there are a bunch of 1-cost cards you can go for, like Tony Chopper, like Atama, which reduces power of one of your opponent's characters by 2,000, like Makino, which boosts one of your 1 cost by 3,000. Like the aforementioned Nami, which of course you're not going to be searching for anymore because Nami went and got banned. But you see where I'm going here with this. And a lot of what they've really done here is hit the consistency. Cards like Nami and Curly Danan in and of themselves are fairly inoffensive. They're just searching out. But these decks are so good and so reliable and so consistent that by going and getting the consistency cards like Nami and Curly Danan, you massively weaken the power of the deck. You can still play these decks, because all the other cards I'm mentioning here are still absolutely legal for play, but all of a sudden the consistency cards are gone. And that's a little bit of a problem. Not all the consistency cards. I've already mentioned Izzo. That's there, and obviously in Whitebeard decks, that's crucial. Jewelry Bonnie from Starter Deck 2 that goes and finds your Supernovas. Obviously really, really useful in your lore decks. Absolutely not been touched here. That is still perfectly legal. But they've gone after the consistency cards to just weaken those decks. As a side note, it's not a deck we've actually talked about yet, but Ace currently makes up in the West like 2.5% of the metagame. It's not huge in terms of, being the best deck or anything silly like that. However, that is a deck that does play Curly Danan as well. And the restricted card we're going to be having a little bit of a look at. So, although Ace isn't the best deck around, like I say, it's 2.5% of the metagame right now. It's fairly small as far as it goes. That is another deck which is being hit pretty hard by the ban list. To be honest, most red decks are. Now, I said there was one new restricted card. There is one new restricted card. They have gone and restricted the other Marco. They've gone and restricted OPO3 Marco down to 1 copy per deck, in the same way they've already restricted OPO2 Marco. Both the Marco have been cut down to 1 copy per deck. The OPO2 is the blocker that on KO you can trash a Whitebeard Pirates card from your hand, and if you've got 2 or less life, play from your trash rested. The OPO3 Marco, the new one that's been limited, when it's played on your turn, you KO one of your opponent's characters of 3,000 power or less, and when it's KO'd, you can trash an event from your hand to play this character from your trash rested. But obviously, if it's KO'd on your opponent's turn, you can still use a skill to get it back, but you don't get to KO a character because, of course, it's not being played on your turn. Basically, you can just perpetually, it's a 5 cost 6,000 power, but you can just keep trashing events from your hand and have this 6,000 power just on the board continually. Anytime it's KO'd, at any point in any way, you can trash an event from your hand to bring it back. It's a perpetual character that's 6,000 power, and it just continually comes back and makes life really awkward for your opponent. So yeah. And you'll notice all of these bans and restrictions here are red. All the restricted cards I showed you last time were red. The team over at Bandai are saying red is too good and they're trying to restrict it. And I've shown you the top 3 decks in the format right now are red. So there is a strong argument that red is a little bit too good. Now, one comment people are making about this ban list is, what about Big Mum? What about the 10 cost Big Mum that is a phenomenal card that is seeing a lot of play and a lot of success right now? And the answer is, hold your horses. Charlotte Katakuri decks are the top yellow decks right now. As it stands at the moment, they are about 11.5% of the metagame according to Limitless TCG. So, hold on for now. People are predicting that with these new ban lists, with red getting nerfed like it is, yellow like Katakuri could see a big jump, and your 10 cost Mum that basically gives you a life and takes one away from your opponent could end up being a problem. And it absolutely could, let's be clear. But we're not there yet, ladies and gentlemen. We are not there yet. This is a big ban list. This is a very big, important ban list that is going to make a huge impact to the metagame. So hold on to your horses. This one's going to be fun to track. And I'm going to be there in November when we have this One Piece regional in Liverpool to see exactly what's going on. For now, I want to know what you think about this. I want to know if you think the ban to Newgate is too harsh. I want to know if you think going after red is a little bit too mean, or whether you think this is going to open up the metagame quite nicely indeed. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.